Hey, folks, this is Bruce Hutchin, and I'm the host of Hutch on Hunting. And hutchonhunting.com is a digital company that's all about research, doing digital research here in the state of Colorado. That's where I live, Colorado Springs to be exact. And I help people want to come to Colorado and go big game hunting. I've been here since 1985, and I've been on hunts for everything except um, moose. I've never drawn a moose tag. I've been on hunts. I wasn't successful getting my ram with my bow. In fact, I missed that out on that, but I've been successful on all the other big game species in the state. And today I have Todd Davis. And Todd and I were just in the pre-show. We're going to talk about hope today, giving man hope. So if you're a man listening to this, if you're a woman, I don't want you to turn it off, but if you're a man listening to this, we're going to talk about hope. Todd, tell us why we're going to talk about hope today.
I believe that hope is what gets us up in the morning, whether you're a hunter or not. And I just think that that's what Scripture is all about. That there's hope through Jesus Christ and what He can do in our lives, and that the change that can come about, and because of what Jesus Christ did, and the hope that's there and is promised in Scripture, that's what drives us, and that's what I'm all about, and what Davis Outdoor Adventures is all about.
And it's interesting, I can go way back to my childhood and going to a Baptist church, and the Reverend Bob Cooper was there. And Mr. Cooper, he liked to hunt and fish, and he tells stories about that in his sermons. I thought that was interesting. So that's one of the things that got me into it, into hunting, because I said, and I shot my first grouse in Forsyth Center, Rhode Island when I was about 10 years old with a single shot 20 gauge. And I've been hooked ever since. But Todd, you and your wife, you've got Todd Davis Outdoor Adventures. And so what kind of adventures do you go on?
It's funny that you're from Colorado. My last big adventure, anyway. I went to Burns, Colorado, and I learned what a landslide could do to your truck up there.
Oh,
wasn't
no.
quite wasn't quite ready for that, but we swam out of it and we made it on up. We were hunting around 10,000 feet, and
Yeah.
air, and then hike for as far as you could go, and then. But we got caught in kind of a freak storm with it. When we left Texas, we're all wearing shorts and t-shirts, and it was supposed to be around 60 up there, but when we got to Vail, it was just snow. Just they were closing the highway, putting sand, salt down, and so by the time we got there, it was about 16 degrees. So they really
Oh,
missed the
no.
forecast, but we had a great time. Nobody's seen an elk. Well, one guy seen an elk, and he shot a nice 6x6, but the rest of us got skunked. But I had the adventure of a lifetime, especially coming from Texas to hunt up in the mountains like that. And, my first real hunt off of a horseback type of thing. So that was my big adventure. And we just, there was one day I just took a half a day on the Wednesday that we were there. And I found this giant rock that's big as my house, and I climbed up on this rock, and I overlooked a big valley, and I thought, I'm sitting here all day. I had my lunch with me, and I sit there, and I see moose go by, and me and this big mule deer buck, we had a intimate conversation there while he was thrashing the bushes not too far from me. But that was my big adventure. That was my last big adventure, and we was about 6 of us went up there, and we had a good time. Got to know each other a whole lot better, and one of them is a big brother in Christ of mine, and so we just were sponges up there. It was our first big trip like that.
Now, what outfitter? You mentioned you went with an outfitter. Who'd you go with?
The Luark Ranch. You drive to their big lodge, and you get all set up and paid up, and then you drive this Mountain Goat Road up to the cabin. The cabins are, they're basically just a cabin, and they have a leaky old propane stove that you turn on when you cook and turn off when you don't. But 55-gallon drum for heat. But on the way up there, we had to have chains because the road was so bad. So we got our chains on our trucks, and there was a stream that kind of went through the road there. And when I went through that stream, the whole road, the entire road for about 30 feet just shifted to, it was about a 30-foot drop. And luckily I hit a tree, and there was 3 guys, me and 2 other guys. And so we got out of there. We got the truck out, it's scratched up, and I still got alarms that go off when I start that thing up now. But we made it on up. It took a couple hours. We didn't get up there till right around dark. But we got out of there, and so we were talking to the outfitter, and he's like, we'll push a little that over there, and it'll freeze, and it'll be good. And I thought he was, out of his mind, but sure enough, that he pushed some dirt up there with a 4-wheeler of all things, and the road froze, and the rest of there was probably about 4 lodges up there, cabins up there, and everybody made it the next day. So it was, I don't know what they would have done if it didn't freeze so hard, but that was quite an adventure riding a mudslide down Colorado for sure.
Now you mentioned you went to Burns. You were hunting out of Burns.
Yes, sir.
So that's 25, 26 and off the Colorado River.
Exactly.
You went right up there. That's a pretty drive coming off the interstate right up the river.
It is. You follow that river up through there. It's really pretty. We seen a lot of fishermen, a lot of campers up through there, and it was, we're right next to some BLM land, and there were a lot of hunters up there. But
yes, there are.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And I hunted that region. I never killed either deer or elk up there, but I hunted right above Red Dead Basin, and that's off, that's in that country. And I used to, when I hunted up there, I used to hunt right on the fringe. I drove to the fringe of White River, the wilderness up there, the flat top wilderness. So I hunted up there. And I know I used to look down and see this huge outfitter. I mean, he must have had 20 people in there every single week for every single season. And so, folks, there's elk up in there, no mistake about it, but it does get crowded. If you're rifle hunting, you'll see more orange coats than you will elk. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, one morning I gave up on the horse, and I just took my backpack, and I went up up this big trail and to another trail, and found a really neat spot. And it turns out it was not too far from where the guy had shot that elk. But on the way back, one of the things coming from Texas, we don't have mountains like that. So when the sun starts to go down, it goes down, on the other side of the mountain, it gets dark. So the last couple miles I walked back in the dark, and you could look across the mountain range there, and you could just see all the headlamps walking down. And I had no idea there were that many hunters up there, but there were a lot.
Yeah. So that's one, scouting report, and that's what I do for hutch and hunting. And that's one scouting report that if you hunt these type of areas, yes, there's elk in there, but you've got to figure out where they're going to hide, where they're going to get food, because they do eat, and where they're going to get water, and where they're going to go to get away from people. And that's true any place. I mean, because you pressure bucks, they'll skedaddle someplace where they're not being pressured.
Yeah, and I think between that and the freak snow, they really wasn't expecting that much snow. I mean, I know on top of the blowdowns and stuff, there were 16 inches of snow, so I think between that and just the pressure, we just didn't see much. I know the outfitter was saying that, they usually triple the number of elk that they had seen in a given week on that first weekend of the rifle hunt there. And it just wasn't meant to be, but we still had a lot of fun. And, it wasn't as, I was so worried about it being so cold that I was majorly overdressing, you know. So my big nervous part was that, you know, you would ride this horse for a couple of hours and you're just sitting there. And then when you get off and you start hiking, so I was dressing in layers and all that, but it was, even though that temperature would kill you in Texas, it was a lot more tolerable up there than I thought it would be. But, you know, I never got stranded overnight or anything, but it worked out good.
Well, and that's great. And, you know, I'm glad you got good memories. And one thing, when you're around a bunch of guys and you're sitting around the campsite or in a cabin, whatever, how do you bring up the subject of your faith?
You know, it's funny you say that, because there are what I consider myself and my friend Mike Kirby. Um, you know, our faith is pretty solid, and but I think everybody there had at least a church background. We'll put it that way. Um, and so probably, yeah, and where everybody comes together was the evening meal. And what we did was everybody brought, we would just freeze something. Like I froze some soup, chicken tortilla soup, and then we would unthaw that, and we'd have enough for everybody. And so each night one person did the cooking. So the kind of what started it, there was several nights we talked quite a bit about religion in general, but it was just the evening prayer. You know, all the guys got around. We're all starving. We're all tired of being wet and cold. And you know, we would say the prayer, and you know, that would, somebody's like, well, you know, where do you go to church? Or you know, when you and Mike seem to really be comfortable with God, you know, what do you think about being up here in God's country? And you know, we would kind of relate it to just the experience we had that day, and being out in nature like that. It's kind of hard not to just be in awe of what God's done up there. It's such a beautiful country, and so we would bring that up, and then it's funny, people would start talking about either, you know, where they are now spiritually, or where they were, and you know, I think I like to hope that some of that rubbed off on them, and there were well, I know Hayden for sure started talking about, he likes to listen to more rap version of Christian music, and him and his wife are pretty uh, active in their church, and that, you know, the kind of the thing that got them there was their kid, and they wanted to raise their kid in church, and then lo and behold, they got all involved in it. But he would sing these rap songs to us. I never heard them, but it was funny. He was good. He was really good. But we had the most fun, you know, with that, and teasing him about that, and he teasing us about our more traditional type of music. But it was all good natured, and it all rounded up of you know, different topics that they had read, and you know, there was some questions. You know, hey, I know, like one time they were quizzing Mike about some scripture that was talking about that your glory you'll when Jesus returns, and you'll return in his glory, and I think it's in Colossians 3. And so that somehow that got brought up, and I was kind of shocked of, like, the guy that brought it up, I would have thought would have been the last guy to know what Colossians 3 was, but he just had questions, you know, and he hadn't been to church in a long time. And so when we started talking to him about our churches and what our different churches are, I think it kind of dawned on him that every church has its strengths. Some are more traditional, some are very contemporary, and just there's something for you out there. And he really thought that all the churches had went contemporary and were singing rap music, you know. Or like, no, that's probably the, you know, there's not as many of those as the old traditional churches. But if you're looking for something more like what you grew up with, it's there. You just got to get plugged in. And so we went from there to kind of, you know, our hope is in Christ. We're having fun out here. We may not have seen an elk today, but we're having a great time. We're all great people. I learned to hate horses while I was there, so that.
I got history with horses. That's why I'm laughing.
they teased me so bad. I'm 6'5", I weigh about 270, and me and my little horse, they sent me so many memes of big guys riding these tiny little horses. It's not even funny, but they had a good time watching me try to get on this poor little horse. But I nicknamed him Trigger, and we had a love-hate relationship, and he liked to go slow and I liked to go slow, so we went that way. But,
A few
but that's
minutes.
how we worked it in. We had a good time with that,
Good.
and I appreciated. You know, hunters in general are just good people. I've always found, even when outfitting hog and turkey hunts, just you can count the bad experiences on one hand after all those years.
Few minutes ago, you mentioned about being in the mountains, especially from Texas. It's different. So when you go out personally, how does that impact you when you're in God's creation, the Rocky Mountains, and I've been up in the country you were hunting in, and you look at some of these places and you go, oh my goodness. No, you say, oh my God, you created this. Because I believe that he created it for me for just this time so I can enjoy it.
My aha moment there, I was pretty mad when the whole road thing wiped my truck out. So I wasn't overly happy about that whole situation. But it was nobody's fault that this kind of thing happens up there. But my big aha moment was on the second day. We didn't ride as far with the horses. We only went about an hour. And we got up there, tied the horses off, and I went down this trail that I was supposed to go down, and it just opened up into this huge valley that, so there's mountains on every side, and there's this big valley there. And that's where I climbed up on this rock, set my gear all up, and I wasn't there no time. And this huge moose, I've never seen a moose in the wild. And this moose he was trotting really quick, and I was shocked about how fast something that big can move through the woods. And he was on the woods on the opposite side of the valley, and he just cruised up through there, and I just watched him, and I just thought that God meant for me to see that and to calm down about the whole truck thing. And that's when the sun came out and I got warm. And I just looked down that valley with I had my binoculars and everything, and it's just as far as you could see, just the beauty of it all. And it was quiet and it was peaceful, and it was just that moment where it was like, this is where God wanted me to be at that time, just to see His beauty and just to say, look what I've done here. This is something. And so to me, right there, that was worth the whole trip. That was worth the cost of admission right there.
And I've been fortunate to hunt a few places in North America, and I've had many of those sunrises, sunsets, and coming off the mountain heavy, and I'm going, wow. That's all I can say is just wow. I get goosebumps thinking of one place in BC coming off the mountain heavy, and I look down, just the majesty, and it's there for me today, right at this time, to enjoy.
That's you're exactly right. When we came down, we were saying goodbye. Mr. Luark, the owner operator there, they got a really nice place, and we just kind of stood out there on his porch, and we were looking, and he was talking. He knew the whole history. He's lived there forever, and just was talking about this happened here and this happened here, and then he just paused for a moment, and he's a Christian man, and he just kind of looked out through there, and he goes, as long as I have been here, you would think that this was old. But he goes, I come out here and I look at this every morning, and he's like, it just never gets old. He's like, this is a special place that God created for us to come and look and see what God's majesty is all about. And I thought that was really neat for somebody. And I mean, he's at least in his late 60s to have been there that long, and what God's done still has that kind of impact on him. It was interesting.
let's give him a shout out. Do you know how to get a hold of him? Do you just get it his website, or what do you got?
I looked it up on his, well, Chris has gone there like 12 years in a row. So I got in touch with him through a gym that my daughter works at, and Chris works out there. But it's the Luark Ranch, and their Facebook, I'm not exactly sure what their website is off the top of my head, but the Luark Ranch, Luark, and it's you can find it on Facebook. They have a lot of different pictures and stuff of what's going on there, but beautiful ranch. And you know, the cabins, you're roughing it. So if you're going up there glamping, then it's not going to happen. But it's it's by far one of the most fun things that I've seen and been a part of. And I really appreciated Mr. Luark and his wife as well.
So I got the screen share up. Luark, how did you spell that again?
Luark.
Luark Ranch.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you see my?
Yep, that's them. That's them.
Oh.
And if you happen to see a white horse, then that horse is see the white horse in there.
There's a white horse.
That's Trigger. That's Trigger. I hope he's okay up there. I hope that he survived me up there. But yeah, that's that. Yep, that's it. Beautiful place. Matter of fact, when we were there, he kept encouraging us to get a bear tag. They had some problems with bears taking a few of their calves and everything up there. But
okay, there it is. Luark Ranch and Outfitters, Luark Ranch and Outfitters, 2835 Luark Road, Burns, Colorado, 970-653-4324. Luark Ranch, 5861 at AOL.com. So if you want to get in touch with Mr. Luark, I'm just going to copy that and put it on your outdoor adventures right here.
Great idea.
And we're going to put that and save that, and that'll go right in the show notes. And we're going to give Mr. Luark some, we're going to give him a shout out. Because it sounds like you had a good time. Sounds like he's a good guy, good man. Sounds like you've been in business for a while. And while I'm doing that, giving shout outs, Fathers in the Field. You can see my hat, Fathers in the Field. It's all about mentoring boys. Fathersinthefield.com is about mentoring. It's set up as a mission throughout the United States, and they work with churches. So churches have to sponsor a group, FathersintheField.com, and 7 to 17-year-old boys, 25 million boys go to bed every night without a father. And fatherless boys lead to disaster. And so one thing I've done throughout my life is mentor young men. And at church, one of the guys said, Bruce, you do all this stuff in the outdoors. Why don't you just become a mentor? I said, okay, fine. And so, like I said, tomorrow I'm going to be my first, it's a 9-year-old boy. And I'm going to hopefully he'll decide to get mentored. So that's something, if you hear my voice, if you're a man, ask your pastor if they have it. If they don't have a group, just go to fathersinthefield.com and say, hey, I want to get involved. It's that simple. And see what happens. So getting back to your business, now, are you retired and doing this full time, or tell me about your business?
Yeah, I'm writing, freelance writing full time now. The landowner, they sold the land that I was doing my outfitting on. So by the time that happened, I had quite a stable of places to write for. I've wrote for National Wild Turkey Federation, Life and Land Magazine, Sportsman, Texas Sportsman Magazine. So the bowhunting.net. There's a lot of places that I write for. Canute.com is a fun one to write for. So now that's what I do mainly. Is I write. Every once in a while, I'll be asked to help somebody set up a deer lease, or go out and fill feeders for somebody, kind of do those sort of things. But for the most part, the main gig is writing now, and I enjoy it. I'm a member of the Outdoor Writers Association of America, the Professional Outdoor Media Association, and the Texas Outdoor Writers Association. So I stay active with them, and I enjoy writing, and I try to put a family spin on as much as I can. My big mission is to try to get more families involved in the outdoors. And what I found is there's a lot of people that their dads brought them up in outdoors, or even if they lived in town, they would at least go on fishing trips and hunting trips. And they've got away from that, and now they have kids, and they are looking for places to take them, but they may or may not remember anything about it. So that's where a lot of the writing that I do comes in for that. I also do some writing for Mossy Oak, and that's always a lot of fun. I do some blog optimization for different companies as well.
Now, how does somebody, if they want you to do some work for them, how do they get in touch with you?
If they can get a hold of me, they can either call me at 817-269-0076, or they can send me an email at todd@davisoutdooradventures.com. And I have a website, davisoutdooradventures.com. And I write about Clem Kardashian, who's my
we're gonna
character.
We're gonna segue into that. So you just opened that door.
Okay, awesome.
So let's talk about that.
Well, Clem is my guy, and I'm trying not to get in too much trouble with the actual Kardashians. So
yeah, whatever.
Play on names, but a lot of his exploits. So I grew up in Winganon, Oklahoma. It's up in the northeast corner, and it is a remote area. But I was fortunate enough to have a dad that was, he was a welder by trade, but he was an outdoorsman, and we were surrounded by family mainly that was all outdoorsmen. And they loved to be outdoors, hunting, fishing, whatever was in season. But even more than that, they loved to have a good time, often at each other's expense. And so over the years, the exploits there just stuck in my brain. And so from everything from the crazy dove hunts they had to some of the fishing trips they had, because we lived right off the Oolagah River or lake there. And so those Clem Kardashian is pretty much the exploits that I had as a kid, and other stories that were passed down over the generations. And so I've been writing about Clem and having him on my website. He's a pretty funny guy.
Now, have you written a book yet? Have you pulled the collection together and made a book?
It's funny you said that. I've had 2 or 3 people in the last month or so that are like, we want a book about Clem. So
yeah,
the book is in the works.
Great.
I have a whole city, and that Frog Spit, Texas is where he's from. So we're putting all that together so that I'm working on the illustrations and stuff. The lady that did the illustrations is actually my daughter's sister-in-law, and she's gifted in that area, but she's had a baby, so you can't tell her to put the baby down and draw a Clem Kardashian for you. But anyway, it's just been great, and I love writing. It's just one of those things where it's easy for me to write about. I could write about Clem all day. But it's funny. I've had family members that I haven't talked to in years heard about it, and they would write or call and say, my dad told me about that. That was so funny. And then they would share another story. I'm like, you know what? I'm writing about that because that's funny. So it's all tongue in cheek, and I just think that I write a lot about a lot of serious stuff about, everything from, marksmanship to products to, the, hunting safety that you don't really don't want to kid around about that. But, when you go to deer camp, the best part of deer camp is sitting around the fire and sharing the stories and, that to me, when I take my grandsons, a lot of times, they have just as much fun sitting there melting a marshmallow and listening to the stories passed down and we all have a good time with it. And so I'm hoping that that plays with the people that's important to. So that's my audience, I hope.
Well, you mentioned you're a member of POMA, Professional Outdoor Media Association. So, and I am a member, voting member of that. I don't get to the events. They have a national event, and unfortunately, I don't get to that. But next time I do, I'll look you up. Do you get to the convention or
I
to
do.
the
I went to
events?
the one last year in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. The one this year is in South Carolina, I believe. So I probably won't go to that one, but I will go to the Outdoor Writers Association, which is in Santa Fe later in the year. So I'll make that one. So,
Well,
but
that's good.
the great people at POMA. I got a lot of work sent my way from going there. Just there were a lot of editors and stuff there, I learned a lot too about what they look for, what they don't look for, and there's always topics like AI and things that pop up, and so you learn a lot about what editors are looking for and what they want, and if there's any wannabe writers out there, then it's keeping the editor happy is how you're going to stay employed. So learning what they're looking for and a little bit, a lot of it, and some people are just editor to editor. They are a little bit different. Some of them, they just really want a manuscript, and then other ones want a complete finished product with, professionally done pictures. And so sometimes that sort of thing varies, but, the main thing is that they want the story, they want the article anymore. The new trend is towards the story. Anybody can have a PowerPoint slide that'll give you a data dump on a given product, but the story about somebody that it was actually out in the woods and they used that product and had success with it, and they can back it up with pictures. That's golden. That's golden. From a product standpoint, from an editor standpoint, it's the story that sells the product, not necessarily all the specifications listed on a marketing slide.
And that's exactly what podcasting I started in 2015 with a previous podcast, and it's all about the story. Because there's some people that have been very, very famous in the podcast industry, and they have a script and they just interview people and the people tell their story. And then I had a guy, I forget who it was. He said, Bruce, just tell a story. Get people to share their story. Get people, in our case, the whole show is underscored by hope. And so when people hear that, they're in their car, they're traveling, they're just sitting at their desk, whatever, they listen to their podcast, which they can listen to it everywhere. They hear a story and it resonates with them, and we can make a difference. And at my age, that's why I do this. My wife especially says, why do you spend an hour or two a day or whatever you're doing down in your office doing these podcasts? And I said, well, because I want to share stories, and people in our land today, in the United States of America today, need positive stories. There's enough crap out there. If you turn on the TV, if you listen to the news, go to the internet, there's more stuff that is bad, that is negative, than a good story about a bunch of guys sitting around a campfire talking about, man, we froze our butts off, but did we have fun? And oh yeah, I almost trashed my truck just to get in the camp. And all of a sudden it's not that big a deal. Yeah, it happened and we got through it. And so now we're telling stories about it.
Yeah. And they're memories that last forever. And you know, when I was guiding the hog hunts, I used to run a father-son special, and the whole purpose, I mean, I barely broke even on it, but the whole purpose was to get and to tell you the truth, there was as many daughters and dads that came as sons and dads, which was really encouraging. But um, th- that was, you know, that was one of my most rewarding experiences as a guide. And there was a guy, he came out of Oklahoma City and he called me. He's like, you know, my dad used to take me hunting. I haven't been hunting in a while. And he goes, I'm really tired of looking at my kid on his game controller over there all day long on the couch. And he goes, I want to bring him down to Texas and get him away from that and just go hunting. And I said, well, come on down. You picked a good time of the year. So, you know, they came down, and it was pretty funny because it looks like they backed up a box truck to Cabela's and brought in, you know, enough stuff to kill every animal in Texas, you know. So I have this little table that they would stage their stuff on, and he filled it up and two more. And I was looking, I'm like, you don't need this to go hog hunting, and you don't need this to go. But, you know, he was excited, and he bought all this stuff. And so, and both of them super nice. Kid was really well mannered, but we took him out. And the first evening, the hogs kind of stayed off, and then the next morning, he made a really nice shot on about a 250-pound hog. And just when I got there, just the excitement in their voice, and the kid kind of seen what it was all about then. And you know, we brought it back. We took the hero pictures. You know, we quartered it up. He wanted to take it home, and then we you know, he wanted to do a European mount. But that whole process was, I think, he got reacquainted with what used to excite him about the outdoors when he was a kid. But what I noticed was that kid kind of went from the shy, polite kid to an excited kid that was looking at his dad like he was this big hero. You know, you made this great shot. Here's this big, and there was in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, this is a memory that kid's going to have with his dad that's he'll tell his grandkids about someday. And I really thought that the dad just, you know, he hit it out of the park by bringing this kid down there, and we had such a great hunt. But you know, the dad, he was excited about, you know, his kid being there when it all happened and everything. And um, the the way that it all went down, just, you know, it took me about 30 minutes to get back out there and take the pictures, and, you know, but that 30 minutes they're standing there looking at this big hog that they had shot, and they were talking about, you know, hey, we had to be quiet, and we're opening the window and all of this. And you know, there was that I think every hunter has that dilemma of that, when from the time you make the shot to the time the animal actually goes down, I think your heart rate goes up about 5,000 times. But they were both so excited, and you know, the kid was jumping around. We made all these pictures, so I just felt like that was awesome, and that was the whole purpose of doing that. And it was glad to actually see that work out the way it did for them.
And you just described why people spend a gazillion dollars. And like you said, the father didn't need all the stuff he got, but obviously he could afford it, hopefully. He just didn't put it on his Cabela's credit card. But the outcome wasn't guaranteed, but the outcome happened. And now his son was impacted many, many different ways. And when you think about that, that's what Jesus came to do for us. That simple story, you could flip it around. When we were telling it, I was flipping around and saying, okay, this verse and that verse, and, you know, this parable and that parable. But when you think about hope, and folks, if you're listening to this right now and you feel hopeless, you don't know where to go, it's real simple. Just open up your hands and say, Jesus, 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 I need you. And see what happens. Reach out to Todd. You already got his number. Reach out to me at hutchonhunting@gmail.com. Because there's people, you know, if you're in need right now, you know somebody either in your family or in their neighborhood that you can just pick up the phone and say, I need help. Because yes, our country needs help. And the only solution that this man of 78 years knows for an indisputable fact, I'm alive because God loves me. And you could know exactly and have exactly that same rock solid foundation in your life, no matter what comes your way. He is the way. Yahweh is the way. Your thoughts on that, Todd?
I'm with you 100%. You know, after I would get out in the field, I'd always before we loaded everything up, I would just take a knee and just thank God for that moment and for providing for us and give due respect to the animal. And it's just amazing. The hunter would go from, you know, just overwhelmed joy to just a little bit of reverence there, and no matter what their background was. And I just feel like when you're outdoors like that, and you just can't help but feel God's presence, and you just know that no matter what you're going through, when you see something that grand, you know that nothing out there is so big that God can't handle it. If he can make the mountains in Burns, Colorado, and he can provide a hog in a wheat field in Texas for somebody that just really wants to connect with their kid. I just feel like that it doesn't really matter what you're going through. There's hope for you when you see that kind of beauty and experience those kind of experiences. That there's hope. There's hope, and God's ready for it. Just it's there for the asking is what's so great about it. It's like you mentioned, it's just all you got to do is ask and God will deliver.
Yeah. You have to just humble yourself. And I'm leading the Bible study right now on Andrew Murray on humility. And to be humble is tough. And I've been both sides of the spectrum in my life. Not so nice guy, off the reservation guy, and then a more humble person. And you have to strive for that, because every day it's a challenge, folks. Nobody, and hear me, nobody is perfect. Nobody. It doesn't exist. There's only one guy that pulled that off. His name is Jesus. And he went to the cross so you could have hope. Little different podcast, huh?
I love it. Love it. I love it, especially the theme of hope. This with the things that are going on in the world right now. Everybody needs hope.
They do. And when I saw your bio and when I did my pre-show prep, I went, "Oh, I know where this is going." Well, and that's important because I've been around hundreds of campfires, all different guys and gals, and all different income levels, all the different titles. But there's something unique about the campfire, sitting there, because all that goes out the window because you're a hunter. And I just had this discussion with a little guest, because hunters have a unique connection with the earth, with the species they hunt, and with God. Whether to understand it or not, it's still there. because all this was created for us to enjoy, to have dominion, and to be stewards. And that's in Genesis, first book in the Bible, if you don't know the Bible. First book in the Bible, we were given dominion, but we were charged that we would take care of it. So that's the big thing right now. There are those people in the country that are trying to take away, especially here in Colorado, our right to hunt. And I had Dan Gates just on the show on Monday, and he's leading up Save the Hunt Colorado.com. And there's a plug for Dan. Support that, because there's an initiative by the extreme liberal people, anti-hunting people, animal rights people in Colorado to do away with hunting. So that if this bill passes in less than a decade, you won't be able to go to Burns, Colorado, to that ranch and hunt. Why? Because the cats, there's no hunting. Wolves, there's no hunting. Black bears, limited hunting. No spring hunting when they're vulnerable. So when the predators are not managed under the North American model of wildlife management, that means science, folks. That means scientific management to allow the CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, to do their job. If that goes out, then hunters, which is 13.8 million, 14 million hunters in the country, will not be able to come to Colorado and hunt. Why? Because there'll be no game here. If there's no game, there's no hunting licenses. And then the next step in the narrative is, well, if there's no game, hunters don't need rifles. Just follow the magic, or actually that rabbit trail. It's not nothing magic about it. If you read, then you'll know. So Hutch on Hunting is more than just a digital scouting thing. Hutch on Hunting is a voice in the wilderness here in Colorado that says, wake up, do something, because if you don't, you won't be able to hunt in Colorado in 10 years. It won't exist. That's my final comments. You got any final comments, Todd?
No, I appreciate you having me on here, and it's great to share my faith and to hear your faith come out in your podcast. And I just appreciate that, and wanted to say thanks to everybody for listening.
And with that, this is Hutch on Hunting. You can reach out to me at hutchonhunting.com and check out what I do for hunters all over North America who want to come hunting in Colorado.